Welcome back. We're here to talk about Saturday's Premier League game between Aston Villa and Sunderland. Both sides involved in really high-scoring midweek cup games, Barnes, but let's talk about Sunderland's last league game, the first point at home to Swansea.
Yeah, very important to get that first point on the board, and it was a very good point as well, I think, against Swansea, considering the start they've had to the season. They've been one of the most impressive teams in the Premier League so far. When you consider the Sunderland's first two games, they were absolutely woeful against Leicester, as particularly 4-2 losing that game, and then 3-1 against Norwich as well in their second game. A terrible start to the season. Not many people would have been backing them to get anything out of that Swansea game, considering how both sides have started the season. So to get a point, it's a really good result for them. They're perhaps a little lucky to get it. I mean, Swansea, they were on top for a long spell. They just couldn't find that goal. Ayew hit the post with a header. Gomez's goal, you have to say, for Swansea was a really good finish as well. Defoe hit back with a really good finish of his own. So there's certainly something to build on for Dick Advocaat there. There's still a long way to go defensively. They were still a bit dodgy at times, it must be said, and that's somewhere they need to improve if they're going to stay up this season. They simply have to, because they've been terrible the first two games particularly, and then there were signs. John O'Shea came back and shored them up a little bit in this weekend, but they need to improve there. But there are encouraging signs for Dick Advocaat so far from that game, I think.
I think the worst thing for me looking at it recently is that first half performance against Exeter. You welcome Exeter, a lower league team, and Advocaat, put out, I think, his near strongest team. He wanted to let the first team have a chance to prove to him that they were doing well, and they concede 3 goals in the first half. I mean, I know they scored 3 themselves, but to concede like that, I mean, they run out 6-3 winners in the end. Defoe gets a hat-trick, but for some of the goals they conceded in that game, like you mentioned O'Shea there, you could see his face sometimes. He sort of stood in an okay position, and the players around him, they keep leaving too much gaps, and he just kept putting his head in his hands every time they conceded, and you just wonder about that defence. I mean, we talked about Kabul before. That's a weird signing because he's had a couple of really bad years, and I look at the other players in that defence, and there's just not that much there where you think, right, they're going to be able to keep out any Premier League team. No clean sheet so far, plenty of goals conceded. They conceded 8 in 3 games. It's been a really poor start defensively, like you said, and you just wonder, a good defence is how you're going to stay up. You've got to have some clean sheets, and if they don't do that, I can't really see them outscoring many other teams, so I think they're really in trouble.
Yeah, as you mentioned, they have conceded more goals than anyone else in the Premier League from their opening 3 games. Not surprising considering, and then to concede 3 against Exeter as well, terrible. And that's probably the priority for Advocaat, but up front, I think Defoe is going to be vital for them. There's been some links that he might move away from the club, that he wants to move away from the club because they haven't shown much promise in the start of the season. He came out after the Swansea game and said it was a big improvement, may encourage a few Sunderland fans that he might stay. I think it's vital that they keep him, because none of the other strikers are real goal-getters. Fletcher, he's not prolific by any means. Defoe's the only player they've really got who, when the ball comes to him in the box, you back him to find the back of the net. Mentioned his goal against Swansea, really good finish, hat-trick in midweek against Exeter. So he's in good form now, 4 goals in his last 2 games. They need to keep him scoring, need to keep him at the club first and foremost, I think.
Yeah, as for Villa, midweek they also welcomed a lower league side, Notts County, to Villa Park, and ended up coming through, just about. But they conceded 3 as well against the lower league side, so that's poor as well. But their last league game at the weekend, they go to Palace, who have had a pretty good start. Everyone's talking about Palace and how good they could do this season, and Villa go there, and I think Tim Sherwood will be disappointed the way they ended up losing, because they concede that first goal to Scott Dan. From a set piece especially, but then they get back on level terms pretty quickly. It was a brilliant run down the right by Traoré, who also scored in midweek, the kid from Barcelona. I was really impressed with that run. He just burned past 2 players, looked like he just had an extra sort of speed boost on him. It was a fantastic run, and then got the own goal, and for them to then get level, and there was still only about 10 minutes to go, I think, in the game, and then they give the ball away cheaply in midfield. Sacco gets it and then sticks it in the corner. It was a very disappointing goal to concede like that, and that's another defeat in the Premier League. So they got off to a good start, going to Bournemouth and winning on the first day. That was a decent start for them, but since then, in the Premier League, it hasn't been great. 2 defeats since then, and they got through in the Cup, and then they got a draw against Birmingham. That's a fantastic draw for them, a massive local derby there, so that'll be a great game for them. But I think a defeat to Palace, the way it happened, giving the ball away, and after getting back on level terms, very disappointing.
I think the next 2 games either side of the international break are absolutely vital for Aston Villa. This one, and then they got Leicester after that, and then West Brom, who are at the bottom of the table right now. They might fancy their chance of getting something out of that Midlands derby as well. Sunderland and Leicester especially, they're expected to be in and around the relegation zone, as are Aston Villa. They need to win those sorts of games if they want to stay up this season. After that, they've got a really tough run. I think they've got 6 consecutive games against teams who finished in the top 10 last season. So they need to get points on the board now that, as you mentioned, the win against Bournemouth was a decent start to the season, but they haven't been able to build on that. And right now, these next 3 games, if you count the West Brom one as well, which is never an easy one against the Tony Pulis side, but if they can get the points on the board, get a little bit of a run going, even get some confidence confidence going into the tough run, you might fancy a chance of picking some points up there as well.
So it's only match day 4, but this game sort of seems quite important already at the bottom of the table. 3 points for either of these teams could give them a real boost going into the international break. What's your score prediction?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because you never know what you're going to get with both of these teams. They've been poor defensively, Sunderland especially. So it wouldn't be a surprise if we saw quite a few goals. I think I can go for a 2-2 draw.
2-2 draw, yeah. I'm going to back goals as well here. And I think I'm just going to side with Villa. I just haven't seen enough in Sunderland, so I'm going to go for a 3-2 Villa win. So both see goals in this one 1 draw and a Villa win. Thanks for joining us.